Hello and welcome to it. You're watching #Africa. I'm Tutuzile Ramela. In our African proverb for this episode, a stubborn fly will follow the corpse to the grave. But first, let's take a look at some of the stories that dominated headlines across the continent. And we start in Zimbabwe, where the death toll from the cholera outbreak has now risen to 45. The World Health Organization says more than 6,400 people have been infected. All but 2 of the deaths have been in Harare. The disease broke out earlier this month in the capital's western suburbs. The World Health Organization says an oral vaccine will be launched soon. It's targeting nearly 500,000 people in the worst affected areas. To Tanzania now, where Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa has announced that a memorial will be built on Ukara Island. It's the area where a ferry capsized, killing 225 people. Some of the victims of the MV Nyerere have been buried. Officials say the ferry appears to have been overloaded. Authorities revealed that 265 people had been on board the vessel, which was meant to carry only 100 people. And get this, US President Donald Trump's wife, Melania, will be visiting Ghana, Kenya, Egypt and Malawi next month. Trump, who once referred to African states in a derogatory term, appears to be singing a different tune now. The US President told reporters at the United Nations that Africa is a beautiful place. And that is a fact, Mr. Trump. Ahead of his wife's visit, he claims he and the First Lady love the continent and it's the most beautiful place in the world. Now, the United States is pressing Zimbabwe to change restrictive media freedom laws in order for sanctions to be lifted, among other things. Someone who knows all about the battle for media freedom in that country is Zimbabwean journalist Zenzele Ndebele. He recently came under fire from authorities for a documentary he did on Gukurahundi massacres. He joins me in studio now to talk more about what it's like to be a journalist in the country. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with that. Let's paint a picture of what it's actually like to be a practicing journalist in Zimbabwe.
It has always been a dangerous thing to be a journalist in Zimbabwe, because you remember that the last 10, 15 years, a lot of journalists were being arrested, foreign journalists being chased from Zimbabwe. And of course, if you're a foreign journalist coming to Zimbabwe, even if when you're a Zimbabwean journalist, you need to register with the Zimbabwe Media Council for you to be a journalist. However, that had stopped a bit after the removal of Mugabe. We've seen that during the covering of the elections, at least things were a bit freer, although you still need to register. There were not so many questions that were being asked. But what is happening now, example, with my documentary, is just an example that these guys had just paused because they had the eye of the international community. They wanted the elections to go by and get that certification that the elections were free, the media could do anything, and they are back to their wicked ways, because the problem is that the media laws that are restrictive and these funny legislation, they are still in place. So unless and until they remove them, then we will still have a problem, because any police officer can decide to implement the law that is there.
We'll talk about your experience in a moment, but let's just give our viewers some context in terms of what Gukurahundi is. Take a look, listen.
Kodwa lizobuya awuyeyeni bo lizobuya noma kanjani vele lizobuya. Balithethe phela mamene mene balifake esikhwameni bahamba nalo balinika izihlobo zabo indlala yasishaya kwazwela okungapheliyo kuyahlola lizobuya noma kanjani okungapheliyo kuyahlola madoda we.
I'm still joined in studio by Zimbabwean journalist Zenzele Ndebele to tell us more about media freedom laws in Zimbabwe and that documentary that you have done on Kukurahundi, a very hot topic in Zimbabwe. Some issues still plaguing around that. What has been your experience in terms of trying to tell the story? We understand you faced some backlash from authorities.
Basically, my experience is that 36 years after the genocide, the government of Zimbabwe still does not want people to talk about it. This is precisely the reason why they've been, I was called by the police. They told me that they had the information that the documentary contained some of the stuff that was likely to divide the nation. I had not even edited a second of the documentary when they called me. So they tried by all means to, actually, they told me that they want to see the documentary before it's released, and I told them that I was not going to do that. But yesterday, they actually, this documentary will be shown during a festival in Bulawayo called Intwasa Festival. Yesterday, they called the director of the festival and raised the issues that they were worried about the documentary, talked about the censorship certificate and all those kind of things. So you find that it's difficult to tell the story of Kukurahundi precisely because most of the people who were involved during the Kukurahundi era are in government right now. Emerson Mnangagwa, the president of Zimbabwe, was the minister in charge of intelligence. Chiwenga, the vice president, was a soldier and a brigadier in that area. Perence Shiri, who is the minister of agriculture, was actually the guy who was the commander of the 5th Brigade, which committed a lot of massacres in Matabeleland. Then you find that within the intelligence, within the police, within the government, there are a lot of people who were involved at that particular time who are still in government, and they're trying by all means to make sure that people don't talk about this. But these stories are there. Kids are told by their parents. Those victims are still there. Mass graves are still there. Some people who went missing by that time are still missing. And there are mass graves where people have actually not been able to bury their relatives. So it's still a fresh wound. It's still an issue that people want addressed.
Why continue? Why continue to do journalism? Why continue to want to tell these stories in an environment that sounds as if it's not conducive for you to operate in?
I think sometimes when you tell these stories, you don't have to worry about the environment. When I grew up in a village, the story that I was told the stories of my relatives who disappeared. My first day at school when I was grade 1, I was clapped by a soldier because I had said, I don't know where the dissidents are. There are so many horrific things that happened when I was young. And when I grew up, I wanted to tell the story of Kukurahundi. I told my parents that I'll be a journalist and I'll tell the story. So people are looking up to me in the village to say, remember what happened, and you still need to tell the story. And up to today, we have people who don't have birth certificates. We have in our culture, when someone has died, we need to go to the grave and do what we call umbuyiso, bring back the spirit. But how do you bring back a spirit of someone who's buried in a mass grave? How do you bring back the spirit of someone who you don't know where they were buried? So there are a lot of issues, and every day you see someone who doesn't have a leg, who doesn't have an arm, who's still traumatized, women who were raped, and they want the story to be told. So if it means that the government is going to stop it, we are going to tell the story until they listen. And unfortunately, sometimes there are consequences, and we have to be prepared to face those consequences.
Do you fear for your life?
Not really. We are all going to die. And if someone kills you, they don't get 2 lives. They're still going to die. We believe in the Bible, and it says everyone is their own time. So if it's my time to die talking about Kukurahundi, let it be so.
People need healing, people need closure on this issue. Thank you very much, Ndebele Zenzele. He's a journalist in Zimbabwe, talking to us there on media freedom in the country, as well as a documentary that he did on Kukurahundi. When #Africa continues, thousands of bees delay a local flight. We'll tell you more when we come back. Welcome back. Now, after hearing about the murder of twins and countless other infants, a Nigerian couple opened a shelter for children at risk. Superstitious beliefs are rife across the continent, and infanticide was common in Nigeria in the past. However, it's still being done in secret.
These twins were considered evil in their communities. They faced certain death had they not been taken to this home for children in Abuja. The Vine Heritage Home Foundation was started around 14 years ago. It caters to children born in multiple birth situations or with albinism.
It was while we are doing our duties as missionaries, we got to hear about stories of certain children being killed due to cultural practices and beliefs. And we, after establishing the fact from the local people that this is what is going on, we started engaging them. It's like a plea. Can you please allow us to pick these children and raise them? Your culture tagged them as evil because of the circumstances of their birth. They lost their mothers, they were born as triplets or twins, or they were born as albinos. And so it was not easy at the beginning. It took them some time before they could allow us to have the opportunity of saving the first child.
While superstitions around birth decreased in the 19th century, it's still practiced in secret by some. Farmer Ruth Paye was forced to give up her twins and take them to a home for their safety. She says 2 sets of twins from her extended family were killed. The family keep these feathers in remembrance of them. The true level of superstitious infanticide in Nigeria remains unknown. Other babies who are targeted include the physically or mentally disabled and those whose mothers die during childbirth. Ajay and his wife have over 100 children in their home. Some are just a week old, with the oldest being 14.
Many of our children came in as infants. Some of them few hours after birth. We have children coming 3-4 hours after birth. We have some 1 or 2 weeks after birth. There are even some of the children that we have to cut the umbilical cord. When we brought them in, the umbilical cord had not been cut. And so that you have some of them at the point of entry, you have a lot of health challenges because they have been exposed, to some hazards because of the cultural beliefs.
But not all twins are at risk. Kehinde and Taiwo Odenusi were raised in a family that sees nothing wrong with multiple births. They say they grew up just like ordinary children.
I find it very saddening because they are special, so they are supposed to live. They are not supposed to be killed. Like, they are two people, living together, share the same thing, and all of a sudden you want to take their life. Me, I feel it's not a good idea anyway to kill twins, but I hope with the way things are going, everything will change, definitely.
Ajay says the children are only allowed to return to their families when their safety is guaranteed.
Let's take a look at what's been happening on social media now. It's been a busy week where social media is concerned. Flights at Durban's King Shaka International Airport were delayed when a swarm of bees populated the engine of a Mango Airlines plane. Beekeepers were called in to relocate the estimated 15,000 strong colony. And this year's Facebook Community Leaders in Residence Award has gone to an African. The award is given to people seen as having a strong and clear committed vision for their community. Kenyan farmer and agriculture entrepreneur Noah Nasiali took home the $1 million prize. Noah set up an online community which now boasts 100,000 fans in an effort to share pertinent information about the sector. Congratulations to him. And finally, Kenyans have come out in full support of a lesbian movie after a court lifted a ban on it. The film sold out in its first week at theatres.
Rafiki, an acclaimed film portraying a lesbian romance that was until last week banned in Kenya, has been showing to cheering audiences in major cities. In Nairobi, residents had a meet and greet with members of the cast at one of the screening venues, the Prestige Cinema.
Being able to watch it back at home with Kenyans has given me a profound new appreciation because it's such a Kenyan story. Kenyan characters, Kenyan sounds, Kenyan vibe, Kenyan feel to it. And I feel that the appreciation for the film here at home is much greater because the nuances and the beauty, all of it is truly understood by true Kenyans, and it makes me so happy.
Kwa sababu ya msimamo wao wa ndoa ya jinsia moja.
A judge temporarily lifted a ban on the film, making it eligible to be entered for a foreign language Oscar. Rafiki means friend in the Swahili language. To qualify as Kenya's entry under the Best Foreign Language Film category at the 2019 Academy Awards, Rafiki had to be first released in the East African country.
You're just a typical Kenyan girl.
So just because somebody is different doesn't mean they shouldn't be accepted. So in my opinion, it's just that we were celebrating the love. But love can be celebrated in so many ways. So not necessarily that we were celebrating gays. No, it was acceptance and the fact that love supersedes all.
The court ruling delighted the filmmakers but angered the Kenya Film Classification Board. The board slapped a ban on the movie in April, saying it promotes homosexuality, which is a criminal offense under a colonial-era law.
Coming from a place where I honestly didn't think this was going to happen, and for our constitution to uphold and for the judge to rule in our favor, I'm more than happy that Kenyans get to watch this film, and I'm more than happy that Kenyans get to celebrate this film for exactly what it is, a love story and not what people are twisting it and making it to seem.
Rafiki's May premiere at Cannes marked the first Kenyan film to be selected by the prestigious festival. Critics hailed it a sweet romance about two young women who live in the same Nairobi housing estate. In response to the increased interest, Nairobi's Prestige Cinema has added more screenings.
Love always wins. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Do stay tuned to EMCA for all the latest news. Take care and goodbye.